Wine Dine Combine. Today we are heading to Hansa Wines and Spirits shop right here in St. Paul's Bay. Family-run outlet that has become a landmark for wines and for fine spirit lovers. Our guest today brings some Southern Hemisphere flair to this island. Miss Fleur McCree, co-founder of Little Beauty Winery in Marlborough, New Zealand. She joined us today to talk about this boutique winery's journey. Good evening.
Thank you for having me.
What can you tell us about creating this winery, your personal journey?
So it's myself and my partner, and we both grew up in the South Island of New Zealand. Coming from that part of the world, you have an enormous respect for Mother Nature because life is about the outdoors in New Zealand. You enjoy the mountains, you enjoy the rivers, the lakes, the beaches. So you have a love and a passion for growing things and nature. And so when we're thinking what to do with our lives, well, the wine industry in New Zealand was just starting. So we thought, well, that would be really fun to get involved with. And there was connections within our families that we could lend and utilise. But it was really just a sense of sort of passion and confidence that we could create something unique, something different that really respected the sense of place.
So when did you first start planting? What was the first starts of the Little Beauty?
So it started in our minds and our hearts, and we actually went in search of a piece of land that wasn't already planted with grapes. We wanted to start with a blank canvas to be able to make all the decisions about how we were going to set up this project, what clones we were going to choose, how we were going to do the row layouts, how we were going to do the irrigation infrastructure, how we were going to set up the property for sustainably producing wines and something with, legacy and guardianship. So we searched all over Marlborough, and the Southern Valleys wasn't really well known as a wine producing region, particularly in our area. It's an area called the Waihopai Valley, and it sits under the start of the Southern Alps. So you've got this beautiful mountainous range behind you. This mountain range is pushing down these stony deposits. You've got the terraces, and you've got really extreme conditions up there. And it was a pretty unloved sheep farm when we got it, but we knew that it had something special. It had a sort of intimacy about it that we wanted to work with.
It's such an evocative name, Little Beauty. How did you come up with it? What was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so this was something that was quite different. At the time, the brands coming out of New Zealand had quite a lot of geographical connection, so things like bay or river or creek. And we felt that we wanted to sort of set ourselves apart and do something a little bit different. So we decided to think about what did we want the feeling for the range of wines? What did we want people to think when they came into contact with the product? We knew that it was going to be going abroad. It was going to be an international thing that we wanted to launch. So it needed to sort of have a sense of individuality, a sense of personality, a sense of charm, but also a real degree of authenticity. And I'm not sure whether you know, but Little Beauty is a phrase that's used in New Zealand, particularly Australia and New Zealand. It's an Antipodean phrase. So when we have some sort of connection or excitement, or we have some sort of term of endearment, we would say, "You little beauty." So it's something that's quite charming, quite different. The two words alone have a very positive connotation, little and beauty, and it sort of says what we are and what we do and what we want to be. We're a little nation with very beautiful scenery. We're a little wine company aiming to make beautiful wines. So, perfect term.
Your collaboration with the winemaker Eveline Fraser, formerly Cloudy Bay, has been pivotal for you. It's something that starts you off
in the wine world?
Yeah, so when we chose the property, the sheep farm, this was back in 2002. So it was really when the industry in Marlborough was starting to take off. There was a lot of foreign investment coming in, and there was a lot of development. And so it took us around 6 years to set it all up and plant it. It was all self-funded. And part of the journey was to work with other wine companies, notable wine companies, A, to help with the cash flow and the development, but B, to also get some feedback from those sort of iconic wineries and those pioneering winemakers about what our site could produce. So we worked with a couple of companies, and one of them was Cloudy Bay, and it was quite an interesting connection, because you may know that Kevin Judd was the managing director of Cloudy Bay at the time, and he's also an absolutely fantastic photographer. So we invited him to come up to the property to take photos, and actually on all of the little beauty bottles on the reverse, there's images of the property that are Kevin's images. And whilst he was there, he was like, "So who are you supplying your grapes to?" So I said, "Oh, well, would you like to buy them as part of the Cloudy Bay proposition?" And that's how we started working with them. And Eveline was his head winemaker at the time. And then we sort of went into the global financial crisis. Things changed a little bit.
2008 something.
2008, 2009. And we had the opportunity to engage with Eveline, and she's been making the wines ever since. So she's come up her 17th vintage with us now.
You're emphasizing on the single vineyard expressions. So how did it focus the influence, the character and quality of your wines?
Yeah, I think this is quite unique for Marlborough. If we were to think about how many wine companies actually have the breadth and range of varieties and interpretations from a single vineyard site in Marlborough, we're quite rare in that respect. So we've got the 5 varieties, and then we have stylistic interpretations within that. So of course we have stainless steel fermentation examples, but then with Eveline's talent and skill, we're able to do barrel fermentation styles and something a little bit more unique and different, more gastronomic in style. So we really love to be able to show how each of these varieties can present themselves under our conditions. So I'm talking about the mountains behind us. We've got these beautiful stony soils, really large, dense stones, free draining. So there's a lovely sense of minerality across the range. It's a theme in the wines. And then we've got these lovely hot days and cool nights. So we can get some quite extreme conditions. Actually, in the 24 vintage, we got to a 30-degree temperature differential in one 24-hour period. So really extreme diurnal temperatures. We've got the beautiful pure water that's coming off the mountains. And then we've got sort of quite modern techniques that we're using in the vineyard and in the winery. So we're really just trying to show varietal integrity, and I think we've achieved that.
When you mention the climate, it's similar to northern Italy.
It's a maritime climate. So if you think about New Zealand's geography, we are quite a narrow country. We've got the 2 islands. The North Island is more sort of subtropical. The South Island is definitely cool. It's maritime. We've got a lot of influence from the South Pacific Ocean. If we were to travel across the South Island, it's only 130 kilometres more or less in distance. So every day you've got a lot of influence from the ocean. But you've got this mountain range, you know, the Southern Alps. So any sort of bad weather that's coming from the west coast, the mountain range is so fierce that it stops all that bad weather coming over to the east coast. So that's where all the wine growing regions are in New Zealand, mainly on the east coast, and Marlborough's at the
it's
top
sort of
the
a
southern
microclimate.
Exactly,
region.
yeah. And then the southern valleys, there's sort of glacial deposits that have left us this this valley that is a little further from the ocean. So we're about 37 kilometres from the ocean. We're only 90 metres above sea level. So yeah, it's quite distinctive, quite unique up there. Less wind, slightly hotter days, slightly cooler nights.
Let's say that the trends today are going on your hand. Crispy wines, less alcohol, very, very fresh, very fruity wines, like Riesling, like Sauvignon Blanc. What else do you have in the store for us?
So when we were setting up the vineyard, we spent a lot of time traveling through Europe. We went to most wine growing regions around the world, actually, and we were trying to sort of say what styles and varieties did we enjoy and what we felt had sort of gastronomic qualities associated with them. And we spent a lot of time in Alsace. So we were drinking a lot of Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Gewürztraminer, and we fell in love with those varieties. Those varieties respond very well to our conditions. So we've got just a small area of Pinot Gris, 1.8 hectares, and we've got just 0.97 hectares of Gewürztraminer.
Today we are testing Sauvignon Blanc 2023.
Yeah, our heroine product, our hero product, yeah.
So what would you say that you're pulling, the taste is coming from the terroir, obviously? But
yeah, so we try to utilize the opportunities in the vineyard as much as possible. So we have these different blocks of Sauvignon Blanc, and they're placed on different terraces across the vineyard and different soil types. This is one of the things that attracted us about the property, is that we had these terraces and these microclimates that were quite unusual. And we have 5 soil types across our single vineyard, which is also unusual for Marlborough. So we like that. So it ranges from very, very large stones, boulders, through to sort of silt loams. And when we put the vineyard in, we didn't plant all of the Sauvignon Blanc in the same year. So we have different vine age across the blocks as well. So vine age is playing a role in flavour profile, soil types playing a role, microclimates are playing a role. But then we also add complexity in the vineyard, and then we don't prune everything the same way. So we have a combination of 2 cane, 3 cane, 4 cane. So we're playing around with yield and therefore flavour profile by having this different strategy within the vineyard. But then we don't harvest all of it on the same day either. So we're capturing moments in time in the vineyard throughout the ripening season. So what
you're monitoring the sugar level, acidity in the wine.
Exactly, constantly. And we're trying to sort of capture moments. So we're capturing the minerality, we're capturing the sort of citrus spectrum, we're capturing herbal spectrum, vegetal spectrum, and of course tropical fruits. And the idea with Little Beauty is to be alluring, not loud, but alluring, and then take you on a journey as you drink the wine. So we're going for sort of persistence in a journey. We want the experience to go like that.
If somebody is to come to your vineyard and you want to take them for a journey, what will be the journey? What would you start them off, and what will they finish with?
Well, we'd love to show them around the region to start with, because we want them to understand how intimate our site is compared to other parts of Marlborough. You know, Marlborough's not big, remembering, you know, New Zealand's only 1% of world production. But the main sort of Wairau Plain has a different personality and a different feeling to where we are in the Southern Valley. So we want to show that first. We want to show how close we are to the ocean, and we want to get an understanding of the mountains around us. So we take them first through that exercise, coming up to our place to discover this intimate and quite different atmosphere to where we are. We then show them around, you know, all the different varieties, the different pruning techniques and things, but you don't leave our property before you go to the top of the mountain, because this is something completely invigorating.
Before or after the wines?
During. Yeah, I mean, if you climb up to the top of the mountain and look over the vineyard, you have the feeling that you can fly. It is incredibly invigorating. You get a 360-degree view of the Marlborough region, and you realise how beautiful it is. You know, it's absolutely pristine. The atmosphere is so clear. When you arrive in New Zealand, the first thing that you want to do is put your sunglasses on, because you can't believe how bright and vibrant everything is. And wait till you get to the night sky. Oh my gosh. You can see satellites on a nightly basis.
So there is no light pollution at night?
No light pollution. Just 2 weeks ago, I saw a shooting star.
So how big is the vineyard, first of all?
So we are 41 hectares of canopy. What does that mean in context of Marlborough? That means we are 0.15% of Marlborough's production.
How many bottles do you yield?
It depends on year to year. Yeah, we try to keep it quite contained. Little Beauty's very focused on trying to find like-minded people. We're looking for wine lovers. We have a saying that we want Little Beauty to go to good homes only. You know, there's so much effort, so much love, so much passion that's put into this wine that I really want people to respect it and it to be in places where it gets the opportunity to showcase in gastronomic locations, you know, just finding wine and food lovers.
Let's talk about limited edition and black edition wines.
When we set up the vineyards and the company, we wanted to create exceptional wines, and we wanted to be able to showcase stylistic interpretation from Marlborough. So we're very used to stainless steel fermentation Sauvignon Blancs. That's kind of what made us famous. Very aromatic, very fruity, very crisp, very juicy wines. But we wanted to take that one step further, and we knew we had the assets and the opportunity in the vineyard, and we knew we had the opportunity with Eveline's talent, skill, and experience. So we've created what's called the limited edition range, which is really showcasing Marlborough typicity, showcasing varietal integrity, and what you kind of expect from the Marlborough environment. The Little Beauty Black Edition collection is much more complex in style. So there's 3 in that range. There's the Sauvignon Blanc, the Pinot Gris, and the Pinot Noir. And they're really designed for food lovers, wine lovers. We're trying to take people out of the comfort zone for Marlborough with these wines. So much, much smaller production. With the Sauvignon Blanc, it's different treatment in the vineyard. It's isolated rows, just 10 rows, lower yield to really intensify and concentrate the fruit. And these wines, when they go into the winery, they're put into barrels rather than stainless steel. All 3 are wild fermentation, and the white wines, lees aging, Sauvignon Blanc malolactic fermentation, are not wines that are made every year. They're only wines that are made in exceptional vintages. And something else interesting about this range is there's a little bit of bottle age with them. So, you know, New Zealand is known for sort of very fresh wines and current vintage. But when we're targeting the sort of gastronomic sector, we want to be able to offer something that has something unique and special about it. So stylistically different, plus bottle age.
Let's go to the wine profiles. Your Sauvignon Blanc gathered this vibrant profile connotation, like it's known for it. And what sets it apart from the other Sauvignon Blancs in Malta?
Interesting. I guess it's all down to personal interpretation, and but what we like about our wine is that it's very delicate, it's very elegant, it's balanced. We have the journey that we talked about, so we're walking through these different characters as we smell and taste the wine. We love the persistence in our Sauvignon Blanc, so we've got quite a lot of length in the Sauvignon Blanc.
Amazing length.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm still feeling the sip from 10 minutes ago.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've got just this lovely spectrum of flavour. And one of the things that we talk about a lot, Eveline and I, is the concept of drinkability. You want to drink the wine. You know,
it pulls you in.
Yeah.
Because that acidity and lingering aftertaste, it really calls you back, it went to the pitch, it went to this, so what's next, how it's going to open, let's try again, let's sip, let's continue. But when it comes to pairing with food, I believe that you're pairing it with all sorts of spicy food, with all sorts of, let's say, Eastern cuisines, like you can pair well with sushi as well. It's quite, there is a lot of dryness, you can pair it with very greasy fish like salmon, like tuna and like steaks.
Exactly.
I would go even for the lamb with it, why not? And experiment further, but what do you prefer to serve it with? When somebody comes for the wine tasting, what do you offer with this, apart from cheese and with this?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many options with Little Beauty's limited edition Sauvignon Blanc. It's very versatile. I mean, we're an island nation, so seafood plays a big role in our sort of day-to-day food. So we love mussels, green lip mussels with the Sauvignon Blanc, oysters, whitefish. We love scallops with the Sauvignon Blanc, so sort of saline or saltiness. We have quite a lot of Pan-Asian influence in New Zealand, so we're working with a lot of chili, coriander, spicy. Yeah, we love things like fennel, mange tout or pea pod with the Sauvignon Blanc works beautifully. Capsicum, red capsicum, yellow capsicum is fantastic. Tomato is notoriously difficult for food pairing, but you take a lovely sunblush tomato and pair it with Little Beauty limited edition Sauvignon Blanc, it's absolutely beautiful. Olive oil, garlic, feta, lots of options.
Sustainability is a very important factor today in the wine growing. And I know that New Zealand, being New Zealand, it's investing heavily its resources and energy to the sustainability factor of not only wine industry, of all the industries per se. So what can you tell me about Little Beauty, behind Little Beauty? Is there a sustainability program plan? How do you operate? Can you tell us about it? Or?
Yeah, we're really proud of our sustainability program in New Zealand, and we're proud of our sustainability program within our company. So New Zealand pioneered sustainable grape growing and wine making. We were one of the first industries to transition to having a accredited program. We've actually just gone to 30 years of sustainable wine growing in New Zealand, so we're celebrating that this year. And 96% of all producers in New Zealand are sustainable. So this is really an amazing achievement for the New Zealand wine industry. There's 6 areas of concentration for sustainable production in New Zealand. The first one is climate change. The second is soil. The third is water. The fourth is plant protection. The fifth is people. And the sixth is waste. So those are the sort of the anchors of what we focus on. So a lot of what we're doing in the vineyard is much more sympathetic and lower intervention. Something like grazing sheep. New Zealand has got many sheep, play a vital role in keeping the weeds down at certain times of the year, fertilising. And then we're also using that meat, we share the meat amongst the team and things. So there's a lot of initiatives. Something like people is a real challenge in New Zealand. We don't have enough people to work in the industry. So we're bringing in labour from other parts of the world, which is very costly. Our area, when we first set up the vineyard, it's very extreme up there. We have these super hot days, these super cold nights, cold mornings. So we're thinking, how do we make our environment nice for people to work in? So when we set up the vineyard, we did a false headland right through the middle of the vineyard. So we didn't plant grapes on that area. We could have, but we didn't, because we read research that if people were working in the vineyards, pruning or leaf plucking or thinning, after they got to a certain distance, their productivity started to drop. And we said, okay, let's put this headland in the middle so it creates a space for our workers to stop, have a break, have something to eat, drink something, talk to their friend, and then carry on to the row ahead. So that's something that we did way before, this topic became so important. Right now, we've got a huge biodiversity project going on around our vineyard and all of the surrounding areas. So we're transitioning the land from invasive species to native species. So we've got a 5-hectare development at the moment where we're putting in native plants. So we're trying to bring back as much natural flora and fauna to the environment as we can, because harmony is really important, I believe.
And this will reflect on the wine flavors, texture, everything.
Yeah. And we're really enthusiastic about these kinds of initiatives. For example, there was the Auckland University started a program a few years ago to try and understand whether particular vineyards had unique yeasts. Concept of terroir. So they did a study over a long period of time where they would come and they would collect material from the vineyard. Guess what? We've got a unique yeast at our property. Is that why our wines taste so different and unique? Who knows? This is the romance and artistry of making wine.
And the nature.
And the nature.
Is there any other innovative techniques or technology that you started in your vineyard that it was not known in the Marlborough region before?
Yeah, so one of the things that we did when we set up the property, this is quite interesting. We planted the vines in true north-south orientation. And you ask yourself, why wouldn't you do that? Because when we're harvesting the grapes in New Zealand, particularly Sauvignon Blanc, we're using machine harvesters. So they're straddling the rows and they're taking all of the fruit in one pass. If you're not oriented true north-south facing, you're going to have one side of the canopy that's potentially overripe and the other side of the canopy that's underripe. Right. So you're getting sort of sweet, sour, out of balance wines. So we oriented the rows true north-south at the expense of productivity, at the expense of more cost in doing so. But the idea was that we need to give the grapes and the vines the best possible opportunity. So, really important, less than 5% of vineyards allegedly in Marlborough are north-south facing.
Beginning of our conversation, you mentioned the rootstock. You were careful planning the rootstock. That happened 2003, 2004.
So we bought the sheep farm in 2002. It took us 1 year to prepare the land, and then we started planting in 2003 through to 2007. So it's on phylloxera-resistant rootstock. Yeah. And at that moment too, we had the opportunity to put some technology across the vineyard. So we have climatic monitoring equipment across that allows us to look at different climatic variables and maybe help us make decisions in what we want to do.
Do you have frost in the mornings?
Yeah, we do actually. So we also put in wind machines at the beginning. We've got 9 wind machines across that 41 hectares, and they're very, very effective. They're 12-metre mast, there's blades on the top, and they're activated automatically from a temperature sensor that sits in the canopy. So as the frost falls into the vineyard, if it gets to 0.5, then the wind machine activates. And what it does is it rotates and it oscillates.
The air.
Yeah, and it brings the warmer air down into the vineyard to move the frost on. And it's a very sustainable method of frost protection. So yeah, and this is where it's very interesting, because the 9 wind machines, they don't operate all in unison. You know, one wind machine might activate for 10 minutes, one wind machine might activate for an hour. So here you're seeing data showing you how the microclimatic variation across the property. It's very interesting.
Let's discuss the red varieties. So how and where are you going to go next? Are you going to experiment with some European sorts that grow up on the cold climates, or you are stopping at Pinot Noir?
We're very happy with Pinot Noir. Yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful, elegant variety. It's so sophisticated. It responds very well to the New Zealand conditions. We love working with it. You know, it's difficult. It's very, very challenging. It's very fragile, but there's just a lovely sophistication and elegance and delicacy about the Pinot Noir. So no, we're going to stick with that. And of course, we've got so many lambs. What do we drink with our lamb? We've got to have the Pinot Noir.
Little Beauty found its way to the international markets, and you are part of the mainland Europe and UK. Or is there a global reception? I mean, US market, Eastern market. Do you have any connections to Japan, China? Do you expand your market, or you're growing slowly like Little Beauty?
So intrinsically, New Zealanders are adventurous. You know, the first person to reach the summit of Mount Everest was a New Zealander. You'll find Kiwis in all parts of the world. You know, we're way down there in the South Pacific. We've got to go and explore the world. That's just sort of part of our DNA, if you like. And so when we set this off on the project, we wanted Little Beauty to go abroad. You know, New Zealand's quite small as a wine market. You know, there's only 5.5 million people. There's almost 700 wine companies. You know, the supermarket industry dominates the trade. So we wanted our success was finding small niche markets around the world where there was the opportunity to bring our product and our wine and our story to those places. So we like to go where others don't. You know, like we don't sell in New Zealand, we don't sell in Australia because it's too easy. You know, it's a well-worn path between New Zealand and Australia.
So you like to go the path that was not walked before.
Exactly, yeah. Finding emerging markets, you can find little beauty in a lot of spots around the world now. You can find little beauty in places like the Seychelles, Hungary, Poland. I love the fact that we're selling little beauty to Italy, to Spain, to these traditional wine markets that love to discover, New Zealand and New World wines. Asia is an important market for little beauty. New Zealand wines with their sort of fruity, aromatic qualities, perfect for, the affluent female wine drinker. They love to discover these fruity, aromatic wines. So Japan, we sell, Thailand, South Korea, beautiful market for New Zealand wines. Philippines, those sorts of places.
So every winemaker, as you know, has its own favorite vintage. So is there something from Little Beauty that is dear to your heart? And since you're not aging your wines too much, what is the oldest bottle that you have in your vineyard?
Well, we're showcasing the Pinot Gris right now, Black Edition, which is 2014 vintage. And that wine just got awarded 94 points with James Suckling, that vintage, just in November. So 14 vintage was pretty spectacular. Really, really
so
beautiful.
That's your favorite?
They're all my favorite in a way, for different reasons. We have to really value sort of 20 vintage, 21 vintage, because that was the COVID vintages where everything was such a challenge. And, the team still made beautiful, elegant, balanced wines, even though we were under those conditions. And the Little Beauty limited edition Sauvignon Blanc, it's just such a happy wine. It just puts a smile on people's faces. It's almost got like this subconscious effect. And you were talking about it earlier. It reminds you of things. It reminds you of your childhood. It reminds you of summer days.
That's wine. It reminds people of what they were before. So.
Yes, and this is one of the things that the industry, we need to work on. How do we communicate this opportunity with these wines, and how do we connect with the younger people now to bring them
lost touches with tradition?
Yeah, and wine is just such an elegant beverage. You're taking your time over it. You're enjoying people's company. You're enjoying
How much
food.
effort is taken to get one bottle of this wine?
Thousands and thousands of tasks.
How many berries are going in?
Exactly. And
how much hard work?
exactly,
Aging,
the passion.
bottling, transport.
I mean, we're so fanatical about every detail in this range of wines. When we designed the label, we made sure that the font was designed by a New Zealander. This is how authentic this range of wines is. Even the font is from New Zealand.
What the future holds for Little Beauty?
I think the topic of sustainability is becoming more and more important, and we're very good at it. We excel at it. We're advanced in a lot of different aspects, but we're having trouble communicating that message because the topic is so vast. And what does it mean? So trying to quantify, parts of that sustainability journey, we've got to work on that.
Thank you for being our guest. It was lovely talking about you, trying your wines, speaking about the wines. Big thanks to the Hansa Wines and Spirits store. All thanks goes to Charlotte, who actually helped us communicate to you and get this interview going. And we wish you all the best in the future for the little beauty.
Well, no, thank you very much for making contact and setting this up. You know, it's not something I'm too familiar with doing these sorts of things. Cheers.
Cheers.